Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me here today as a part of the 2022 Greenbuild Festival and this our coastal environment session to talk about the work that we have been doing with the Algae Innovation Platform and Seaweed and also microalgae. And it's really great to be here, and also saw some familiar names in the participants list as well, so it's great to see some of you that's already familiar with the Algae Innovation Platform here as well. Just to introduce myself, again, my name is Rikke Nagell-Kleven and I work as an innovation advisor at Hethel Innovation. My background is from molecular medicine and business management, and as you might already have understood and seen from this picture, I'm also very passionate about the ocean, which was probably developed from a very young age growing up by the fjords in Norway. Just to quickly go through what I'm going to talk about during the presentation today. During this short talk, I will talk about the Algae Innovation Platform, what it is, how we identified the need for it, and also how we started the platform and grew it. And then also going to talk about what we have done since last year, what kind of development and progress we have done since last year when I was also here at the Greenbuild Festival to talk about the Algae Innovation Platform, and also our next steps and the overall vision of the Algae Innovation Platform. To provide some background information about Hethel Innovation and also to explain how we got involved with algae and the seaweed sector, we provide business support across Norfolk and the east of England and have three key focus areas: spaces to grow, business insight, and also connect the communities. With our spaces to grow, we have two sites in Norfolk. We have Hethel Engineering Centre and also Scotland Enterprise Park, where we provide incubation space to businesses as well as on-site business support. With this business insight, we provide business support to members on our sites as well as external businesses, where we provide the science sprint, workshops, mentoring, and also event hosting. And topics of support include business planning, strategy, marketing, branding, project management, funding, and market research, just to name a few. And lastly, connect the communities. This includes event hosting, such as networking events, and also creating these innovation platforms around specific challenges or opportunities in our region. And we also want to connect businesses to researchers in their field and encourage cross-sector collaborations, which is also a part of the innovation platforms. So essentially, we are an innovation consultancy that focuses on innovation and incubation, and helping businesses to grow, develop, and become more innovative. So just take it back to the very beginning and the main reason for why we open our eyes to the world of seaweed, also called macroalgae in the first place. And that was because of the great opportunity we have for this industry in East Anglia because of the location of Norfolk and Suffolk. So why shouldn't we exploit this? In fact, Norfolk and Suffolk have over 140 miles of coastline bordering the North Sea, which is currently being developed into a thriving energy and raw material generating region, where the Netherlands and Belgium are two countries that are leading on this with their focus on smart use of space at sea while building so-called multi-use sea farms where they have wind turbines, seaweed cultivation, shellfish cultivation, and also floating solar panels. However, the benefits of increasing the focus on seaweed goes far beyond our region. The growing world population means increased demand for food and also land. And by 2050, human demand for food will increase by 70%. And agriculture's capacity to sustain this demand is constrained by lack of additional land, but also fresh water, and is also threatened by the climate change. However, seaweed can be farmed at sea and does not require fresh water and also this land, and also grow up to 20 times faster than trees. So seaweeds are seen as an important future feedstock for Europe, as well as also microalgae, but also has wider applications in nutritional supplements, fertilizers, animal feeds, biofuel, textiles, cosmetics, wastewater treatment, also bioplastics, again, also just to name a few. The applications are so many. So accordingly, there's a broader interest in accelerating the seaweed industry in Europe and increasing the supply of more local seaweed. And this is particularly because the vast majority of macroalgae cultivation currently takes place in Asia, namely China and Indonesia, whereas Europe only stands for a small percentage of the total seaweed cultivation, and harvesting of wild stocks is the predominant production system that is currently used in Europe. As an example, numbers from the North Sea farmer shows that in Asia, 97% of the total seaweed produced is from cultivation, whereas only 3% is a result from wild harvest. On the other hand, in Europe, 99% of the seaweed produced in Europe comes from wild harvest, and only 1% comes from cultivation, although there is an increasing number of commercial farms that have gained licensing to farm seaweed off the UK coast. But however, the European seaweed market is growing every year, and Europeans ate over £700 million worth of seaweed in 2020. And sales of seaweed for different uses and consumptions are also projected to increase to between 1.7 billion and 2.5 billion pounds by 2030. So accordingly, there is increasing interest in using seaweed for food and feed and other applications, which means that we must import even more seaweed from Asia than we already do now if we do not increase our local seaweed production in order to meet these current and future demands. So I really believe in the importance of building communities to share R&D expertise and also industry experiences and focus on collaboration and innovation. That will be key to scale up the seaweed and microalgae industry in the UK to meet these growing demands. So the AIP, Algae Innovation Platform, was therefore built with the intention to collaborate to accelerate the algae and seaweed industry in the UK with the local focus. And this was established in June last year after talking to various businesses, researchers, organizations, and also local entrepreneurs in the east of England that were interested in micro and macro algae. So macro algae is also called seaweed, and also how we could develop an industry for this in our region. So from the conversations, we found that there were a great local interest for both microalgae and also seaweed, macroalgae. But there was a lack of a shared platform to communicate about these initiatives, and we therefore decided to establish the Algae Innovation Platform as a place to talk about current projects and ideas and also collaborate to accelerate these local initiatives. So since June last year, we have held 7 meetings, and 4 more since the last time I talked about the Algae Innovation Platform last year at the Greenbuild Festival. And these meetings have gathered people interested in various applications of algae to come together and share their expertise and experiences. And I'm super proud of the community of businesses, researchers, regulators, and also innovators that we now have built. And as these meetings have progressed, the main focus of the platform has been on seaweed. And the overall aim of the platform is to collaborate to better understand what is needed to develop a viable and also sustainable seaweed industry in the east of England, and also to discuss and map the current barriers for development, like licensing applications to be able to farm seaweed off the coast, funding, supply chain logistics, and also the processing of seaweed, as well as environmental concerns. However, because there have also been an interest for microalgae in the region, we have also kept this on the agenda for development too. So far, the meetings have seen the engagement for over 90 people from different companies and organizations, both inside and outside our region. And we've also had contributions from contacts in the Netherlands that have come to share their expertise and experiences from seaweed projects from the Netherlands, which has been amazing. And the member base have also organically grown from meeting to meeting by people spreading the word about the platform and also sharing our updates. And we've also seen great conversations and collaborations coming out of the Algae Innovation Platform. It's also been a really good place to meet up regularly to update everyone on what's been going on with their business or the research community, and also in the region with regards to algae since the last time we met up. And also the meetings have included inspired talks from leading companies and researchers in the seaweed and microalgae sector, as well as from our members, where topics of the meetings and talks have included an overview of the UK seaweed industry. We've talked about seaweed processing, we talked about seaweed farming, nanotextiles from seaweed, seaweed in livestock feed, again, all these applications. And we've also talked about microalgae applications in the food industry, and also how we can create advanced packaging solutions made from seaweed, just again to name a few. And we also always finish each meeting with an open discussion and a networking session so that members can connect and start conversations outside the meetings as well. So I mentioned that I also talked about the Algae Innovation Platform at the Greenbuild Festival last year, and since then we made great progress. Among these, we have had some fantastic spin-off projects from the platform regarding a seaweed-based product and also future farming techniques. So I especially want to name one spin-off project that we've had from the platform that is called sea capture. So they are looking at a tank-based model that mainly focuses on sea lettuce or Alga, and that's the one you can see on the picture on this slide. Looks really pretty and green, almost like normal lettuce. And they've been looking at this tank-based model as an alternative to offshore seaweed farming, with their profits and resources to be reinvested into the ocean reforestation efforts. And they're also looking at a seaweed circular economy in Norfolk and East Anglia. We've also made further connections to local companies, universities, researchers, and experts in micro and macroalgae, and we have grown our member base substantially and organically in the last year. We've also established a fantastic link to the new Broadland Food Innovation Centre that is located at the Food Enterprise Park at Easton, and the support program that they have for businesses there, where they support small food and drink businesses to grow. And this is also a very important link, as microalgae and also seaweed, as mentioned, are seen as a really important future feedstock for the growing population, where seaweed, again, as mentioned, have wide applications in food and nutritional supplements. And there's actually about 12,000 different species of seaweed, and out of these 12,000, 220 of which are actually currently already used in food. However, seaweed are still underutilized food source, but they do have this fantastic and great potential and an increased interest in European markets because of their high in dietary fibers, they're high in vitamins and minerals, and also low in dietary fat content, also rich in proteins, calcium, iron, folic acid, and vitamin K. Again, the list goes on. And studies have also shown significant health benefits to eating seaweed, including reduced blood pressure and also improved digestive health. As mentioned, in 2020, Europeans ate over £700 million worth of seaweed, and globally, seaweed production is a more than $6 billion industry, of which 85% comprises food products for human consumption. And also the shift to more sustainable diets and increased consumption of plant-based products is also enhancing the interest for application of microalgae and also seaweed in food. Edible seaweeds are also, for example, seen as nutritious and sustainable alternative to animal-based products, animal-based protein, and around a third of UK seaweed-related businesses actually targets the food and drink industry. However, a barrier to consuming more seaweed and also plant-based product in the UK is that meat has been a long-standing feature of traditional British meals. And there's also a couple of other associated barriers with seaweed food products, such as food safety, quality, preservation and optimization, and also something called food nephobia. So essentially the fear of new food products, something that's also seen, for example, with introducing more insects into our diet. To overcome this, the Broadland Food Innovation Centre project recently launched a plant-based protein innovation platform. And this newly started innovation platform has the aim to discuss how to expand the production of plant-based protein within the East of England supply chain, where collaborations between the two innovation platforms hopefully will aid with increasing the awareness of the benefits of using seaweed and also microalgae in food. So to come back to our progress and the progress we made in the last year, we have continued to spread the awareness of the benefits of algae implementation in food and other applications through attending and speak at events, such as the plant-based protein innovation platform launch and also the Broadland Food Innovation Centre food innovation cluster events, in addition to the Seaweed Innovation in the UK, Innovate UK KTM event, to continue to accelerate and scale up the local and UK algae industry and spread the awareness of the benefits of seaweed and also microalgae. So what are next steps? What is the vision? What is successful Algae Innovation Platform? Well, as discussed, the Algae Innovation Platform was established after talking to local people interested in developing an industry for algae in East Anglia and collaborate to make this happen. So we want to continue to work to minimize the barriers that are delaying development and continue to raise awareness of the benefits of algae. Again, there's still a lot of work to be done here, a lot of awareness that still needs to be done, as seaweed is still seen as something quite new. We want to support the development of a local strategy that encourages algae innovation and the establishment of local seaweed farms, because without locally farmed seaweed, we will not be able to establish these local supply chains for regional seaweed industry. However, something to consider with locally farmed seaweed is that it could be difficult to compete with the prices of seaweed from Asia, where production costs are a lot cheaper and they benefit from warmer climate as well. So we might have to rely on consumers wanting to pay a little bit more for locally and sustainably farmed seaweed. It must also be mentioned that we must look to carefully at the impact on the ecosystem when it comes to establishing seaweed farms in the region, as we do not want to introduce any new environmental stresses, but rather want to positively enhance the surrounding environment, the biodiversity, and also, of course, our coastal communities. The overall vision of the Algae Innovation Platform is to develop, secure local supply chains to produce algae products in the region and encourage cross-sector collaboration, commercialization, scale-up and spin-off projects from the platform. And we already know that there is a demand for locally produced seaweed, as there already are companies in the region that are already using or want to use seaweed in their products, and that they now currently have to get their supply elsewhere. So because of this, supply of seaweed from local farms will support a circular economy and also new industry for the region that can lead to economic growth and new businesses and also new jobs emerging. I also mentioned the challenges that is associating with introducing more seaweed into the food that we eat. However, more local production of seaweed might be able to tackle some of these challenges and the xenophobia that I mentioned, and help consumers realizing the perceived health and environmental benefits of consuming and also producing more seaweed locally. And I think that the way forward to ensure scaling up of the local and also the UK algae sector is to continue to build these communities like the Algae Innovation Platform to share expertise and industry experience, not only domestically, but also internationally, and get people interested in seaweed to connect, to accelerate ideas, support new ideas, and also to help each other in breaking down these known barriers to development, to answer to future demands for the growing population, and also to protect our environment. And I think that's all I have time for today. Thank you again so much for listening and for having me back here to talk about the Algae Innovation Platform, seaweed, and also microalgae. Please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions after the talk today, or if you want to come along to a future Algae Innovation Platform meeting, or if you just want to have a chat about seaweed. Always happy to talk about seaweed, so please reach out. Thanks again, and I'm looking really forward to answering any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Rikke. That's fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people will have got a lot of things that they didn't know about that. And it's a huge new topic to so many people. We've got a number of questions that have come in. I think we've got 6 or 7 minutes to pick those up before the next presentation. So the first one I'll kick off with, Nigel has asked, what are the local barriers to seaweed farming in North Norfolk? So what are the key things that could prevent it from taking off?
Yeah, so it's very much the main ones that I mentioned. So the licensing application barriers. So we know that we have some companies that want to farm seaweed off the Norfolk coast and other places in Norfolk that have had to wait over 4 years to get their licensing. So I would say that that is the main barrier, because again, we need locally farmed seaweed in order to be able to have a local seaweed industry. So that is the main barrier. And also obviously to do this, to do seabed surveys so that we don't introduce any new environmental stresses to the environment. And also, once farms are established, we need to have a look at supply chain logistics. How is it all going to work? How are we going to get the seaweed? How are we going to process the seaweed to get them to the companies that wants to use them? and so on. But I would say that the major one is licensing application.
So a new product and a new supply chain and all of those things that need to go with it. Can I just, I think Kate might have another question in a second, but could I just follow up with a supplementary one? Are there conflicts with other marine users or uses or competition for marine space?
I mean, I would like to say no, because I think that there's so many great benefits of having a seaweed farm. Obviously, you could say that you're kind of competing for space, marine space, but hopefully, if a seaweed farm is farmed in a good way and the right amount of service have been done beforehand, you would hope that that would actually lead to more fish, for example, be around. It can be protection for younger fish, and actually can increase the biodiversity and be a gain for the environment. So hopefully no, if it's in the right place and all the service have been done.
And that's what the consenting process, I guess, is all about ensuring. Yeah. Kate, is there another question that you've got lined up?
Yeah, we've had a question from Thomas. He's been asking about creating a taste for local and native algae rather than introducing new species.
Yeah.
And that sort of fits in with a question Ed says that it's on his recent holiday to Pembrokeshire. Lots of the shops there were selling their locally farmed seaweed, but he's not seen anything like that in the shops in North Norfolk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That would be the focus for any farms around here to hopefully farm seaweed that's already located in the North Sea and not introduce any new species. And hopefully, when those farms are up and running, you will see seaweed products that have used local seaweed around here as well. I mean, that would be our goal.
I guess there's a related question. So how do we avoid creating monocultures of non-native seaweed here? Is that an aim? Is that going to be competition for indigenous, cultures of seaweed?
Yeah, I would say that the aim would be to grow natural seaweed that belongs in the North Sea, and to look at how you can farm them as sustainably as possible around here, because we know that there is a need for seaweed that do naturally grow in the North Sea. So that would naturally be the focus.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about, well, I'm guessing seaweed is no longer considered a weed. It's something which is useful to us. You talked about growing, farming, harvesting, but what are the processes? Does it involve nutrients? Does it involve chemical pesticides and the kinds of things that are associated with terrestrial farming? And if not, can it be considered an organic sort of certified product?
Yes, so I'm not a processing expert, but obviously it wouldn't be the same kind of farming technique that you would use on land. I'm not aware of any sort of pesticides that you would use. I assume that you would rather have a look at your stock and see how they're doing, and obviously not use anything that would be contaminated, but you won't obviously have the same issues as you would have with agriculture.
Okay, Kate, is there another question? I think we've got time for one more before we start the next presentation.
Yes, Roger wants to know how you go about sort of monitoring the impact that you have on the local area. What sort of surveys do you do, and how do you assess any changes or damage?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a group, we haven't done any feasibility studies so far. That would certainly be a goal, and I have a specific one in mind. But the companies that want to farm seaweed off the coast here obviously have to do a certain amount of service in order to get license to farm, like seabed service and so on. So that would be with the company itself that wants to farm seaweed. But obviously, there's of interest to everyone that you do in detail service to make sure that you again don't introduce any new environmental stresses. So as a group as well, we want to, obviously sustainability is definitely in front of our on top of our agenda.
So thanks again. True innovation. It's and starting at the beginning enables us to I suppose commence with this sort of sustainability as our watchword, and I suppose that takes us on to our next presenter will be talking about the quality of the marine environment and marine conservation. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you, Rikke, and thanks to everybody who's been posting questions. If you can hang around for questions after the next presentation, then there might be some common themes about conservation that we pick up. So thank you very much for that. Now, Nigel is going to start the presentation, which is from Alice, which, as we said, was pre-recorded due to connection issues, but we will hopefully commence that now. Thank you very much. So I've been asked to just film while Nigel's clicking the right buttons. Alice does introduce herself in the video, but Alice Tebb is part of the Agents for Change project. She's the project coordinator with the Marine Conservation Society. She's currently working with communities living alongside the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds Marine Conservation Zone. That's a mouthful. We've been engaging with Alice and that organisation for quite some time, making connections with the local fishing industry, and working alongside one another to ensure that there's a good level of understanding about the marine conservation zone, but also the people who are interested in the marine conservation zone recognise our local sort of terrestrial interests. How are we doing, Nigel? Are we there? Still saying no, so I'm probably reaching the end of my knowledge about the marine conservation zone without actually watching the presentation. Have we got, in the meantime, another question, Kate, that perhaps you can pose to Rikke?
I was just going to say, Rebecca's asked a question about how much of the coastal area is in the marine conservation zone, but that is something that I'm hoping that Alice will cover in her talk. Yeah, we have got a question with someone asking, we have got this lovely chalk reef just off our coast, and how do the two work together in tandem?
Yeah, obviously that is an area we must protect. So obviously around that area, I presume it wouldn't be any seaweed farming to protect the chalk reef. But hopefully, again, they can work together in kind of symbiosis with fish. Obviously, be a great breeding ground for fish with the new seaweed farm, and hopefully that can then positively benefit the chalk reef as well with the more thriving species.
And I've got one more quick question then. Someone's asking, how quickly does seaweed grow, and how much carbon does that capture compared to a crop on the land? Yeah,
I mentioned in my talk that it grows around 20 times faster than trees. So it just depends on the species. They can grow several inches a day, so really, really fast. And when it comes to the specific amount of carbon it can sequester, that also depends on the species. But I've seen some lovely calculations on it, and it's looking to be quite a substantial amount that a seaweed is able to sequester. So but that's a very interesting other discussion.
Okay, good. Nigel's given us the thumbs up, so I think we're good to go. Thank you very much again for answering those questions and for sticking around with us. Cheers. I think we're aware of the fact that the sound is not currently operating, so we will we'll restart, hopefully with sound. Apologies for the technical glitches. We're there. Thank you.
I'm Alice, and I am a project coordinator at the Marine Conservation Society, running a program called Agents of Change. And I'm here to talk to you about the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds and why the sea off of the North Norfolk coast is so special. So first, I'd like to talk to you about our ocean. So the Earth actually has one ocean. You might be familiar with this image on the left, but actually to us, this is a map of the sea. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet and holds 97% of Earth's water. And so, yeah, I just thought that was a different kind of viewpoint for you. And actually, at last year's COP26, Sylvia Earle showed audiences this perhaps lesser seen image of our Earth. So the ocean is a major influence on weather and climate. The ocean distributes energy, water, and carbon around the world, and it absorbs solar radiation, and this heating makes water rise up and move, and eventually it cools and sinks, and this movement creates circulation systems, and that heat exchange is entirely natural. It drives the ocean and atmospheric interactions, and especially warm seas provide conditions for hurricanes, cyclones, and droughts, and rain, you name it. The ocean dominates the Earth's carbon cycle, absorbing roughly half of the carbon dioxide and methane that's added to the atmosphere. Half of all primary productivity, that's plant life to most of us, comes from the ocean, and so it plays a huge role in capturing carbon. Globally, although sadly, globally the ocean receives less than 1% of climate finance. So despite its ability to help us meet our climate and biodiversity goals, it's not always so well looked after. Okay, back to the UK. So I'd like to talk about marine protected areas in the UK. What is a marine protected area? Well, it's actually an area of sea that is designated to conserve some or all of what is inside it. There's a kind of sliding scale of protections, and so some types of marine protected area offer more environmental protections than others. Around the UK, there are actually quite a few different types of designation of marine protected area, and this map with all the different colours shows some of those different kinds to you. But for today, I'm going to talk about one type, the Marine Conservation Zone. So here they are in purple. So the Marine Conservation Zone network is in England and Wales as a result of the Marine and Coastal Access Act in 2009. And each marine conservation zone is designated for its own special, rare, threatened or vulnerable habitat or creature, and they must either be maintained or recovered. Marine conservation zones are multi-use sites that regulate or manage the most damaging human activities and permit low impact activities to continue. So a bit nearer to home now, the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds Marine Conservation Zone. Here it is, designated at a site off of the North Norfolk coast, designated in January 2016. It covers over 300 square kilometres and runs from Kellinghard near Weybourne to Haysborough. What does it protect? In a word, seabed. The marine habitats here, the seabed habitats, must be legally maintained in a favourable condition. How did it get its name? Well, a shoal is a nautical term for a shallow area of seabed. And so just off of Cromer, you can see the Cromer Shoal. And off of Sheringham, we have the Sheringham Shoal. That's also the name for the wind farm nearby. However, within the Marine Conservation Zone is the Cromer Shoal, although it isn't limited to Cromer by any means. It stretches right along the coast, but that's what it's called in marine maps. So, as I said, it is seabed habitats that are protected within the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds Marine Conservation Zone. Well, which ones? What are they? So here is a delightful government map for you. You'll see that actually the green shaded area is chalk in kind of various forms, and actually it's thought that the chalk reef within the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds is actually the longest in Europe, and actually marine chalk around the world is an internationally rare habitat. So we have some pretty good stuff off of Norfolk. And those few orange dots are actually exposed clay formed from kind of ancient lake beds, and they're areas that are important for kind of mussel beds and other crustaceans that can kind of bore into the clay. Some other habitats that are protected include a kind of broader range of seabed habitats that are kind of important for general ocean health and function. And here they include kind of shallow and deep water rock habitats, beds of coarse sediments, mixed sediments and sand. And these kind of mobile sediments will cover and expose the chalk rock beneath in some areas depending on the tide. All of these habitats are special. For example, marine sediments, just like soil on the land, are important kind of blue carbon stores. But the raised and rugged chalk reef really is the jewel in the crown for the Marine Conservation Zone and the local area. So where is this kind of jewel located? So off of the North Norfolk coast, the marine chalk runs from right up at East Runton, so almost 0 to 25 metres seawater depth, and it can be seen at East and West Runton beaches. In total, it's thought that the North Norfolk chalk beds actually cover an area of 190 square kilometres, which is an equivalent area of roughly 4 times the size of Norwich City. It's formed by the chalk reef is kind of formed through natural erosion processes, and the reason why it's called a reef is because chalk is what's called a geogenic or a geological kind of rock reef. You can also have biogenic or living reefs, which are made from things like mussels or corals. So they are both reefs, but just different types, whether they're living or now dead. So the chalk off of North Norfolk mostly forms a flat bed. However, the kind of raised and rugged areas have formed over millennia. And what the chalk does for us is actually quite a lot. So in this kind of more complex and raised area, it provides a solid surface for wildlife to live on, nooks and crannies for creatures and seaweeds to live in. As I mentioned earlier, in kind of primary production. So because there's so much surface area for seaweeds to attach to, they're brought kind of closer to the sea surface as well. They get more light. Those seaweeds provide oxygen, not just for fish, but also for people to breathe. And actually the ocean, globally, the ocean provides half of the oxygen we breathe. So every second breath comes from the sea. And it is an incredibly diverse place. Over 700 kind of different species of animals and seaweeds have been observed and recorded on the North Norfolk chalk reef, including, as pictured here, sea bass, lobsters, the European eel, which is endangered. There's also kind of crabs and bib, and it's really kind of all this amazing sea life as well supports that kind of lives on and around the Marine Conservation Zone, supports some pretty incredible seabird populations, although sadly they have been hit a bit by avian flu recently. But you also have dolphins and porpoises that swim through the area and enjoy the foodie delights of the Marine Conservation Zone very much. So It's also thought that the raised chalk provides a bit of a physical barrier to waves, and so it provides some coastal protection, reducing erosion a little bit. Chalk, its kind of scientific name is calcium carbonate, and so the clue is in the word carbon, so it's thought that it may also in and of itself be a source of carbon. And we as people are connected to the chalk in lots of different ways. So the main one that comes to mind, and most people's minds, is fishing. So these fish provide lots of jobs for local fishermen and seafood processors. And, you know, the fish kind of landed and sold in the local area is worth about $1.5 million a year. But of course, that's not its only value. It's providing us with food, right, and nourishment for our bodies. But you know, the famous kind of Cromer crab and Sheringham lobster and herring are really kind of well-known fisheries for the local area. And of course, with the local fishing culture and indeed the kind of wide range of recreational activities as well, supported by the chalk beds, so diving, snorkeling, and angling as well from the shore, that really benefits the local kind of visitor experience and tourism economy, and that supports local hotels and restaurants. And the chalk also actually helps to maintain some of the sand on the beaches too, that is enjoyed by sunbathers. So really, there are also many ways that families enjoy the space, whether it's through kind of rock pooling or just enjoying the surf created again by water over the shoal, because the compression of the water over the reef provides surf. The fish that live on the chalk beds and the chalk beds themselves are also kind of inspiring to local culture, whether that's kind of photographic work or film. I've even seen knitting of the chalk reef, embroidery, glass, metal, painting, found item art, like you name it. It really does inspire and influence local creative people in all sorts of ways. And education, right? The chalk reef, and to those of you listening now, you know, provides opportunities for research and increasing our knowledge of the natural world, which all of this just makes us feel good. It makes us proud to live in the North Norfolk area, and you know, for visitors also, it's a kind of another reason to come to the area because it's interesting and special. So we actually really need, for lots of reasons, we need the chalk bed to kind of continue providing all these things. So how do we ensure that? How do we ensure that it is kind of conserved and continued, or continuing to kind of benefit us? How can we help benefit it? Well, there are lots of people who work in and around the marine conservation zone. So Eastern Ifka, who manage fisheries, they look after kind of licensed or commercial fishing and also recreational fishing. The Marine Management Organisation, they have to look after all other licensable activities, things like building, aggregate extraction, ports, and so on. And the Environment Agency are really important for water quality and coastal protection. And bays are part of the, I suppose, kind of group of government agencies that are kind of centre around kind of oil and gas and also kind of renewables. So all the wind off of the North Norfolk coast. Natural England provide conservation advice, and the North Norfolk District Council, let's not forget, they are the local planning authority and they manage coastal recreation and tourism as well. So there's quite a lot of people, quite a lot of different organisations involved in the marine conservation zone. And so what's happening at the moment? Well, actually, there are some historic protections. So in the 1980s, local fishermen lobbied the local fisheries managers to create a bylaw that excluded trawling, a type of kind of bottom type of fishing that is a little bit more destructive to the seabed. And so local fishermen asked for that to be excluded between Blakeney and Munsley. And this bylaw actually really helped to preserve the chalk reef in excellent condition. More recently, in 2019, that historic trawling bylaw was actually expanded to cover 93% of the marine conservation zone. I don't know if you can see on this poster here the pink shaded area, but that is now the area of the MCZ that is kind of protected to bottom trawling. And you know, the seabed is a busy place, so here's a map that we had made recently which also shows all of the wrecks, cables, pipes and wind farm kind of spaces on there. So really the marine conservation zone status means that it is more difficult for companies to get permission to build or extract from within the site. And what is happening as a result of its designation is that newly proposed wind farms are bringing their cables ashore and they're routing them away from the protected chalk beds. So before it had this status, this designation status, they didn't have to do that. And now, in some cases, they are just offering to do it. So that's protection status is really working in that way. You know, it's still not a kind of full protection measure, and certainly buildings that or construction that is considered to be of national significance would still kind of get a priority over the MCZ status, but only they need to have like quite a serious reason to override the kind of protection status. Okay, a break from maps. Now you get to look at people. So before the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds Marine Conservation Zone was designated in 2015, there was a process called the Community Voice Method that I suppose researched coastal community values in the Eastern Ifka district, so Suffolk, Norfolk and Lincolnshire. And what it found, especially in Norfolk, was that people really wanted improved local communication and trust, including kind of there being a need for kind of better information to guide management, improving local communication, data sharing and transparency between the policymakers and the community. And there was, you know, in with that desire to understand the marine environment better and for fishermen and environmentalists to work together. And at the time, they did find that the marine conservation zone did cause concern amongst some local people about what management measures might come in that kind of might damage, for example, the local fishing industry. And so those findings actually supported the justification for increased local communication and engagement and the Agents of Change project, which started in late 2017. So kind of getting working, what we did in spring of 2018 was we used all of the past work around the marine conservation zone and got going. We just got going with a questionnaire and attending events to better understand local feeling towards the marine conservation zone now that it was designated. And the results from these questionnaires helped to inform our first community workshops. And I should mention that we did all of this work supported by Hilary Cox as well at the time. So in spring of 2018, here are some photos from our kind of community workshops that were happening. And people present drew what they wanted to see. that basically supported an action plan, and that included kind of agreeing a community vision. So the vision was informed and engaged communities working together to support a thriving marine environment that provides sustainable livelihoods. And within that, as I mentioned, within that vision, there were kind of some priority areas of work. The first being supporting a thriving and improved marine environment, specifically concerns centered around limiting large non-local fishing effort and also supporting local management within the marine conservation zone. And we were able to use these community responses to respond to the Eastern Ifka's trawling bylaw that you can see there. People also really wanted informed and engaged locals and children, and particularly wanted the project to find resources to develop a local marine education coordinator who could promote the local and national importance of the MCZ, and also how communities can be, if you like, ocean friendly. And so at the moment we work with a lady called Jenny Lum, who delivers kind of free sessions to schools with fishermen, with environmentalists and all sorts of marine experts. So please get in touch if you're interested to know more for perhaps your kids or somebody you know for their school. There was also concern around fishing economy, particularly recruitment into the industry and the currently kind of aging fishing population locally. And so our our education program also offers children a connection into kind of meeting fishermen and understanding a bit more about where their food comes from and what being a fisherman is like. So finally, people wanted informed and educated visitors, particularly asking for there to be some sort of a website and social media presence to promote the marine conservation zone as an asset, and also to inform non-locals about how they can also be ocean friendly. So there is a website under development, and there is currently a Facebook page with around 600 followers, most of whom are local. We've also been able to support signage along the coast and connect local people with that as well. And yeah, I suppose a particularly exciting example is some of the efforts at the reef swimming pool at Sheringham. And a few years ago, Hilary also worked really closely with the Deep History Coast project to bring in signage. So the sea off of the North Norfolk coast is deeply embedded into local culture and tradition, but there is also information that has come to light that potting might be having a bit of a higher impact on the chalk reef than previously anticipated, particularly around the raised and rugged areas of chalk. And so the Eastern Ifka are aware of the chalk reef's importance to the local fishing industry and wider society, but they also need to protect it for the future. So how to strike a balance, how to ensure that there is a kind of sustainable environment and economy. As I mentioned earlier, Eastern Ifka are the lead fisheries managers locally, and they are looking to create policy where needed and are collecting evidence as required, because ultimately a healthy sea underpins the entire community network, and fishermen have been working in the local sea for decades, but changing fishing practices, including an increase in potting, increase in pot weight, strength of ropes, and modern fishing techniques just means that longer term now some of the chalk is being impacted by potting activity. And so the Agents of Change project is continuing our commitment to informing and engaging local people, and also, you know, supporting a kind of local fishing industry and a thriving and improved marine environment by now supporting community participation and input into the management deliberations at the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds through supporting the stakeholder group. And you can find out lots more about the management at the site and the stakeholder group by visiting Eastern IFCA's website. The link there, eastern-ifca.gov.uk/Cromer-Shoal-Chalk-Beds-MCZ. The IFCA, I should mention what is missing from this is that the IFCA has also set up with local community, including beach cleaners and divers and many more kind of groups, have set up an evidence review group that meet with the IFCA directly to discuss kind of the community-based citizen science to help provide evidence and also kind of fill information gaps that maybe Eastern IFCA needs. So if you're interested in what they do or being part of that, please contact Eastern IFCA. And actually, I just wanted to mention that the Cromer Shoal Chalk Beds Marine Conservation Zone stakeholder group has a community meeting coming up with lots of updates from Eastern IFCA and also opportunity to kind of input to their management decision-making process. So please get in touch with me, alice.tebb@mcsuk.org, if you're interested in taking part in that. So something that the IFCA have done since the stakeholder group was set up and since they started their adaptive risk management process is they've set up a code of best practice for fishermen, and this is endorsed by the North Norfolk Fishermen's Society and the Norfolk Independent Fishermen's Association. And this code is specifically around what to do if you lose gear. Something that was observed particularly by divers and also by IFCA kind of survey gear was that gear that was lost, that wasn't even being kind of actively fished, was impacting the seabed because of how long lasting and durable it is now. And fishermen don't like to lose gear, but perhaps there could be a better system, a better process for if and when they lose gear, working together with others if they can't recover it to recover it. And so this code of best practice is out now and increasing kind of the way that community are working together to support the health of their local sea. The IFCA are doing tons more work, and it's definitely worth checking out their website for more information about their research, ongoing research work. So I couldn't go anywhere without really quickly mentioning that the North Norfolk District Council are also doing some interesting and fantastic things around the local sea. And actually in February this year, they signed up to the Motion for the Ocean. The NNDC are part of the Local Government Association Coastal Special Interest Group, who has set up a model for how councils might be more ocean friendly in their decision making processes, and also in kind of more public facing ways how they can encourage local people to be more ocean friendly and also work with other councils to lobby government. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions, please get in touch with me and I will do my best to get back to you as quickly as I can. Thank you so much. Bye.